Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to our third class, Learn Arabic from the Quran. And we are going to study nominal sentences and case endings in this lesson 3. We started this discussion last time and we will be continuing that discussion this time. And we're going to move on and start from slide number 3. So again, to recap, we said that the last letter of a noun, if it has a dhamma on it, we say that the noun is said to be marfu'un. It indicates the nominative case. We said when the last letter of a noun has a fatha, we say it is in mansubun. We say it is mansubun to indicate the accusative case. And thirdly, when the last letter of a noun has a kasra, we say it is majrurun because it indicates the genitive case. So now we are going to go a little bit further so you understand why that is the case and what is the purpose of identifying these states. So let's go over this sentence. Although you do not know that this is a verb, dhahaba is a verb, it's quite okay. Still, you'll be able to follow along, inshallah. So this verb means he went. So zahaba, he went. Who went? Muhammadun went. Ila suki, to the market. Souk is market. So whenever you have a verb, you need a doer of that action. And the doer of the action is Muhammad. He is the one that went to the souk, to the market. So Muhammadun is the subject of this sentence, of this verb. So because Muhammadun is the subject, that is the reason why it ended with this dhamma here. And this is a tanween dhamma, as you already know from our last class, that this is tanween dhamma. So Muhammad is the subject of this verb, which is indicated by this status, marfu'un. So it is the subject. That is why it carries this marker at the end to indicate its status as marfu'un. Compare that to Muhammadan here. Here it was Muhammadun, here it is Muhammadan. Why? Because Muhammadan, he is not the subject here. Because here the verb is ra'aitu. It means, this piece of it means, I saw. I saw. So here I am the subject. I am the subject because I saw Muhammad. So Muhammad is not the subject here. Okay. He is the object. And we will study about objects. We will study about verbs down the line in the future. But for now, you're just trying to understand why there is that fatha on here. And that is because Muhammadan is the object here, indicated by the double fatha. So Muhammadan is mansubun. That's all you're trying to understand in this example now. So when you say, ashhadu anna Muhammadan, that's why you say Muhammadan and not Muhammadun. You're bearing witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the servant of Allah and his messenger. So basically here you are the subject, right? But you are bearing witness that he is the servant of Allah. So here Muhammadan is the object, okay? So that's why it's Muhammadan and not Muhammadun. So if someone were to say that Muhammadun, it would be incorrect. Okay, and in the final case, the last letter over here is kasra. So this is in majroor status. Why? Because as we will learn in future lessons, ala is a preposition which means on. So here the meaning is on Muhammad, ala Muhammadin. So this ala caused this to become in majroor status. So I hope you understand the difference here between Muhammadun, Muhammadan, and Muhammadin is because the function that it's playing in the sentence, that's the most important thing. The function that it's playing in the sentence determines whether it's going to have the Dhamma, the Fatha, or the Kasra. In another example, we see here, As-sa'atu ala sariri, the watch. This is a preposition. Ala means on, it's a preposition. The watch is on the bed or the couch. As-sariri can mean either the bed or the couch. So you can see how this is as-sariri with a kasra over here. The reason it has a kasra is because a preposition came before it. So that's all that you're trying to understand. You are not expected to right now understand verbs or prepositions, but what all we are trying to learn in this lesson is that why the case is that the nouns are in these three states. They're in these three states because of the function that they play in the sentence. And we will slowly learn more about these functions during the course, inshallah. So moving on to the next slide. And we have covered this last time, these terminology. So you can also say an ism is in the state of raf. It is marfu'un. It's the same thing. It is the same thing, okay? So these are other terms that you might hear representing the same thing. So ar-raf, it is equal to marfu'un. So when a noun is in the state of nasab, it is called mansubun. The state is mansubun. When the noun is in the state of jar, it is called majrurun. These are saying the same thing. Just terminology that slowly you will get familiar with. We've already covered these examples last time, so I'm not going to go over it again. Okay, so now let's get into something called the nominal sentence. What it means is, nominal means it starts with a noun. Nominal means it starts with a noun. And first we will cover the English version because it's going to be very similar in terms of terminology with Arabic. So let's cover the nominal sentence first before we get into the Arabic terms. So let's say if I say, Muhammad is a student, okay? So this is a sentence. So the sentence is, Muhammad is the subject of the sentence. And what is a student? Is a student is the predicate. So a predicate makes a statement about the subject. In other words, the predicate expresses what is said about the subject, meaning the predicate is basically giving you more information about the subject. The predicate is giving you more information about the subject, who is Muhammad. What is Muhammad? He is a student. So Hamid is the subject. Let's get some more information about Hamid. How is he doing? He is sick. He is sick. So that is the predicate. Okay, giving you more information about Hamid. So in Arabic, what we just talked about right here, the nominal sentence, which means it began with a noun, Muhammad is a noun, Hamid is a noun, proper noun. These kind of sentences in Arabic, nominal sentences, are called jumlatul ismiyatu. What does jumlatu mean? Jumlatu means it's a sentence. Al jumlatu means sentence. What kind of a sentence is it? It is a ismiya. It is a nominal sentence. So what does ismiya mean? It comes from ism. Ism. Ism is, we talked about in our first class, ism means name, but ism can also mean noun. Okay, so from that we get ismiya. Jumlatul ismiyatu. This is a nominal sentence that begins with a noun. Versus the second type of sentence in Arabic begins with a verb. We saw a couple of examples of this before in our previous slide, but we are not going to cover verbal sentences in detail first. First, we were going to cover nominal sentences. in our later part of the course, we go into verbal sentences, but it's good to know that the second kind of sentences are called al-jumlatul fi'liyatu. Okay? So again, verbal sentence. Okay? Fi'liyatu. Fi'l means verb, and from there, this is called a verbal sentence. All right? Okay. Now let's take some examples again. So let's look at this first sentence. So Zayidun alimun. Okay. Now please watch carefully, because when you translate into English, we are going to add this is not there in Arabic, right? So Arabic, the sentence is not going to have is, are. You have to plug that in. So a lot of times students make mistakes over here. So just please watch out that you just have to plug in that is. Okay. So Zayed is learned. Zayidun alimun. Look at this sentence. Fatimatu alimatun. What do you have to do? You have to put in this is here. Fatima is learned. Okay. Next. Al-waladu dhakiyun. The boy is, here you go, is your is, intelligent. Dhakiyun means intelligent. The boy is intelligent. Okay. So the next one, al-bintu jamilatun. What did you do? You put in this is here. The girl is beautiful. So in translating from Arabic to English, you have to add this is. You have to add or are or am. Okay. So now we talked about earlier subject and predicate. So subject is, these sentences are beginning with the subject. Zayed is the subject, right? And the other part we said, which gives you more information, is called the predicate. So here, Zayed is the subject. Zayedun is the subject. So what do you say that in Arabic for subject? It is called mubtada'un. Mubtada'un is the subject. I would advise you to please learn this terminology. This is important because we will be using these terminology a lot. So please learn the subject in Arabic is mubtada'un, and the predicate, this should be easy for you if you are familiar with the Hindi Urdu languages. Khabar means news. So the predicate is called khabarun. Khabarun. So here alimun is learned. This is the khabar. Here Fatimatu is the subject. Is learned is khabar. Fatima is the mubtada. Okay, mubtada. So sometimes I say mubtada'un, other times I just say mubtada. Why is that? Because I think you're already familiar with this in the Quran. So if you're reading, you could properly, you say mubtada'un. But if you stop, you can skip saying that last tanween over there, right? You can just say mubtada. You can just stop. You don't have to pronounce that at the end. So they're both right. I can just say mubtada, or I can say mubtada'un, which is I'm completing the sign, the case ending. I'm reading the case ending. Sometimes you don't read the case ending. See here, I can read the case ending, khabarun, or I can just say khabar. Okay. So, so when you are saying things, sometimes you don't pronounce the case ending. It does not make it incorrect. Khabar. I can just say khabar. Okay. So same here. I can say Fatima tu, or I can just say Fatima because I stopped here. Yeah, Fatima. If I just say the name, I don't say Fatima tu. Okay. So here the khabar is alimatun. In the next example, al-waladu is the mubtada. Is the mubtada. What is the khabar? Zakiyun, Zakiyun, because it is giving more information about the walad. It is giving you more information about the boy. Al-bintu is the mubtada, is the mubtada'un. What is the khabar? Go ahead, try to figure it out. Yes, if you're saying jamilatun, that is correct. That is the khabar. The girl is beautiful. So now the predicate, please observe over here, is indefinite, right? You remember indefinite from our last lesson? Indefinite means it's indicated by that. Generally, it's indicated by that tanween at the end. It's not definite. If it was definite, it would be al-alimu, al-alimu. It would have an al in front of it, but it doesn't, right? So it is indefinite. So the predicate, the khabar, is usually most of the time indefinite. Okay, look at all of them. Tun, zakiyun, jamilatun, they're indefinite, right? So please remember that the predicate is indefinite, okay, but the mubtada is definite. Look, Zayed is definite because it's the name of a person. It's always definite. We talked about this in our last class. Fatima too is a name, so it is definite. Al-waladu is definite, obviously, because it has that al. Al-bintu is definite because it has that al. The girl, the boy. So these are both definite. So the other thing we want to observe here is the predicate. It agrees in gender with the subject. I know we have not studied gender, and gender is a separate lesson coming up soon, but just briefly, so you have this idea in your head, that the predicate matches the subject. What do I mean by that? Matches. So Zaid is a boy, right? Or a man, and he is learned, alimun. But look, what do you see difference between here and here? What do you see is different? Yes, there is this ta marbuta at the end, ta marbuta at the end. Okay, why? Because Fatima too is a girl. It's a girl. So that's the reason. Gender, there's a difference in gender between these two sentences, right? And that's the reason why there is this ta at the end. Okay, and we will learn more about this in the future, but for now, what you're learning is that the predicate has to match the subject. The predicate has to match the subject. If the subject is a boy, then the predicate is a boy. See, alimun. If this is feminine, then the predicate also has to be feminine. It's going to match, okay? Look, al-waladu zakiyun, this is masculine, right? Boy. So there's no ta marbuta here. If it was a girl, you would have added a ta marbuta at the end. Generally speaking, that's how you make feminine, generally speaking, not always. You would have added this ta marbuta at the end, okay? Generally speaking. Now here, al-bintu is a girl, So look, there is a ta marbuta at the end, right? Jamilatun, jamilatun. So what we are observing here is the predicate matches the mubtada or the subject. The khabar matches the mubtada in terms of gender. It matches in terms of gender, okay? So this is just a recap. We already talked about this. So here, al-baytu jadidun. Jadid means new. So the house is new. So we observe here that al-baytu is the mubtada, jadidun is the khabar, because it's telling you more about the house. Al-baytu jadidun. We also said al-baytu is in the nominative case, which is, it is marfu'un. Why? Because it is over here the subject. Mubtada, that's why it is the subject. That's why it's in the nominative case. And that's the reason for this ending in this u, the case endings, okay? All right. So again, recap, the nominal sentence consists of the mubtada and the khabar. The mubtada is the noun about which you want to say something, and the khabar is what you have to say about it. For example, if you say, Al-Kamaru Jamilun. In this sentence, you're speaking about the moon, Al-Kamaru. So it is definite. It is definite, and it is the mubtada. And the information you are giving about the moon is what? It is beautiful, Jamilun. Yes, and you must be wondering why it doesn't have that ta marbuta at the end. That's a clue that this is masculine, right? So yes, even objects, as we will learn in our future lessons, even objects in Arabic can have gender. They can be masculine or feminine. But we will study more about that down the line. So what we are really focusing in on right now is that this is the khabar. All right. So, and already we said both the mubtada and the khabar are marfu'un. Marfu'un. Both are marfu'un. Again, recap. We talked about jumlatul ismiyatu. Al-masjidu qaribun. Qaribun means near. The mosque is near, right? This is the mubtada and this is the khabar. Qaribun is the khabar. It tells you a little bit more information about the mosque. Just a little chart to recap that al-jumlatul ismiya composes of two parts, the mubtada and the khabar. Al-mubtada'u and al-khabaru. All right, so let's do a little bit of a recap, then we do a little bit of practice here. So a sentence that starts with a noun is called the nominal sentence. It has a subject and a predicate. Both the subject and the predicate are always nominative, always marfu'un. The subject is mostly, in most of the cases we will study in the beginning, all of them are definite. The Arabic word for definite is ma'arifa, ma'arifatun, ma'arifatun. The predicate is mostly indefinite. What is the Arabic word for indefinite? Nakiratun. So let's take some examples. So please translate this. If I tell you jadid means new, please try to translate this sentence. Al-kitabu jadidun. What does that mean? The book is new. So what is al-kitabu? It is mubtada'un, it is marfu'un, and it is ma'arifatun. It is definite, ma'arifatun. Let's see this side. So the book is new. We're getting information about the book. So what is jadidun? It is khabarun, marfu'un, and it is nakiratun. It is indefinite. Nakiratun, there's no al in front of it. Let's look at the second example. If I tell you maksurun means broken, how do you translate this? Try it. Okay, so it is the pen is broken. So al-kalamu is mubtada'un, it is marfu'un, and it is ma'arifatun, which is definite. And what is maksurun? It is khabarun, marfu'un, and nakiratun, indefinite. Now, third example, hadha baytun. Okay, so this is the house. This is the house. So this is the mubtada, because even though you don't see the al, in front of it, this is definite. We will study about haza in a future lesson. This is definite by its nature. This is definite by its nature. So what is this? We are getting khabar on it. This is a house. So baytun is the khabar. It is marfu'un, and baytun is nakiratun, which means it is indefinite. So this is, now it is telling you that now the subject may be a noun or a pronoun. Okay, so before in our example, the subject, we had looked at subjects. This was we saw a noun, right? We saw a noun in the subject in these two examples. But in this case, the subject is a pronoun. Yeah, so we have not studied anti. We will study in the future. But just for now, just to show you that the subject can also be a pronoun. Okay, it can also be a pronoun. So this is saying you are Fatima. Anti Fatimatu. So here anti is you. Anti is you, which is a pronoun. Here the pronoun is the subject. So here you are Fatima. So what is the information about you? You are Fatima. So Fatima is the predicate this time because it's giving information about you, which is the subject. Okay. So anti Fatimatu. So you might be wondering, okay, if it's the subject, where is the Dhamma, right? But this is different because we will study about these. These are pronouns, so they come in fixed forms, and we will study about this down the line, okay? You don't have to worry about that right now. Right now, the focus of this discussion is just for you to understand that the subject can also be a pronoun, like you are Fatima. So Fatima is the predicate. So the predicate may also be a proper noun, a noun, or a pronoun. All right. Now, the other thing here is, again, we pointed this out to you before, that when I say al-kitabu kabirun, you put this is in there, and this is indefinite. This is indefinite. The book is large, kabirun. Okay. So why is this important to observe that kabirun is indefinite? It is, let's talk about that. It is important to observe that it is indefinite because that's what makes it the khabar, okay? So if I make it definite, if I say al-kitabu, al-kabiru, what happens is the meaning changes, okay? Because now, look, this has al and this has al. The meaning is now the large book. The meaning is now the large book. The meaning is different than the book is large. This is, the large is now an adjective. It's describing your book, the large book. It's not a full sentence, right? If I say the large book, you're kind of wondering, okay, so what about the large book? It's not a complete sentence anymore. So large is an adjective describing the book. Okay, so in English, the adjective came before, but in Arabic, the adjective comes after. Now, we have not studied adjectives. It's a future lesson. But right now, the purpose of this discussion is to point to you that you cannot make the predicate have match indefiniteness with the subject. Because if you put this al here, it would match the subject, and then it would become an adjective. So you cannot, if you want the meaning to be the book is large, you cannot have this al in front of it. Okay, because if you made it match, it would become an adjective. It would be the large book. If it matches indefiniteness, if this matches indefiniteness, then it would become an adjective. So make sure you, when you're translating, if there's no al here, then it is the book is large. And if you didn't understand that, it is quite okay. We will be studying about adjectives down the line, inshallah. So here, let's see that this is a predicate. Let's take this example first. So if we say al-mudarrisu jadidun, al-mudarrisu is masculine. It means the teacher is new. The teacher is new. So al-mudarrisu is the subject and jadidun is the predicate, mubtada and khabar. Now, we already said before that if it's feminine, you have to sometimes add the ta marbuta at the end. So look here, if I want to say feminine, I'll say al-mudarrisatun, al-mudarrisatu, I'm sorry, al-mudarrisatu. I don't say tun because I put an al in front of it, right? Okay, so al-mudarrisatu jadidatun. So here your predicate has to match your subject because the subject is feminine. Your predicate has to match it, okay? So again, we will study about gender in the future, but this is just pointing out to you that the predicate needs to match in gender and in terms of plurals. So we haven't studied plurals also. We will study plurals in a future lesson, but the plural of feminine plural over here is al-mudarrisat. Al-mudarrisat, this is feminine, which we will learn later. But the main purpose of this is just to show you that the predicate is now plural. Because the subject is plural, the predicate is plural. This is all that you are noticing right now. You don't have to worry about how to form these words because that's a future lesson about plurals. The main thing is that the predicate is matching the subject in terms of gender and in terms of, it's in terms of gender and number, okay? So this is just a recap of what we already talked about. You can read this on your own, but this is just a recap. For example, Khalidun talibun. Khalid is a student. So we see that this has a dhamma. It's nominative. And this is the predicate, which is also has a dhamma. Talibun. Khalidun is a student. Okay, so we already said nouns and adjectives are going to carry dhamma, fatha, or kasra. We already discussed the states. So this is just a recap. So we also talked about this. Equational sentences, it's nothing but the subject and predicate equal each other. Okay, this is also now a final recap of what we talked about today, which is al-mubtada'u. Mubtada'u is from the Arabic word al-ibtida'u, meaning the beginning or starting. And that's how the meaning comes. It comes in the beginning of the sentence. So al-mubtada'u is an ism. Ism means what? Ism means it's a noun. It's a subject. That is the subject of talk or discussion. And it is, mubtada is marfu'un, meaning it takes a dhamma or dhammatan on the last letter. So one dhamma or two dhamma. Dhammatan means two dhammas, which is a tanween. So al-mubtada'u in its origin, as we will study in the beginning, this will always be the case. The mubtada will always come before the khabar. Okay? Let's not worry about the few exception cases where the mubtada may come later. For now, that's what you need to know. The mubtada will always come before the khabar. Okay? So, and then al-mubtada'u is ma'arifatun. Ma'rifatun, meaning it is definite. So the khabar is that which comes after the mubtada, okay, in its original form. The khabar gives information or news about the mubtada and by which it completes a benefit with mubtada. Okay, so al khabar is nakira, is indefinite. Khabar is marfu'un. So again, it takes a dhamma or a dhammatan. One dhamma or two dhammas. We talked about the nominal sentence, al-jumlatul ismiyatu, where the first word is a noun. Al-kitabu sahlun. The book is easy. Sahlun means easy. The book is easy. When we translate, we put this is in English. The book is easy. Al-kitabu sahlun. The noun which commences the nominal sentence is called al-mubtada'u, while the second part is al-khabar. The verbal sentence we talked about briefly, al-jumlatul fi'liyatu, is when the first word is a verb. For example, we said kharaja bilalun. So kharaja means went out. Who went out? Bilal went out. Bilalun. So Bilal was the subject of this verb. That's why it has a dhamma as a case ending. These are case endings. I'rab in Arabic, case endings. We will cover these quite a bit during the course of the lesson, the case endings. So that's it for this lesson. Now we are going to move on to our book and look at some examples from the Quran to kind of go over this lesson. All right, so let's look at some examples of what we talked about today. The nominative case, as we discussed, when the noun is the subject, doer of the verb, it will bear dhamma. It will bear single dhamma or tanween dhamma, which is the double dhamma, which is the tanween. So let's look at some examples here. So, qala Nuhun. Again, verbal examples, but that's quite okay because even if you don't know verbs, we can look at the translation and say, okay, qala means said. So who said? Nuhun said. So who's the subject of this saying? Who did the action of saying? Nuhun did the action of the saying, right? So that's the reason for having this dhamma. It is in the state of marfu'un. So let's look at this. One shaqqal qamaru. So you don't know this verb. It means split. So what split? What split? The moon split, right? So the moon is the subject of this verb. The moon did the splitting. So al-qamaru is the subject, which is why it bears this dhamma. That's the reason why it's not al-qamara, al-qamari. It is what? Al-qamaru. The moon was split. Another verb, waja'at sayyaratun. So this is a verb. Ja'at, it means came. So the verb came. Who did the coming? Who's the action? Who did this action of coming? It's the caravan that did the action of the coming, right? So this is the subject. Subject, it's the nominative case showing this marker at the end. The case ending is a dhamma, double dhamma. So sayyaratun. Okay, let's look at some examples of the accusative case, which is mansubun, halatun nasb, mansubun. So mostly we looked at examples where it is the object of the verb. And then we said it will bear a fatha or a tanween fatha, double fatha. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Again, some verbal examples, but that's quite okay because we will be pointing out what is the object. So let's look here. So ja'alallahu al-Ka'bata. So Allah has made the Kaaba. So who's the subject here? Allah, he's the one that made the Kaaba. So Kaaba is the object. And that's the reason why it bears that fatha. Okay. And wadaraballahu mathalan. So daraba means to set forth an example. It's a verb. So who does that? Who gives the example? Who strikes an example? Allah strikes the example. So Allah is the subject of this verb. So he is the subject. That's why it bears the dhamma. Allah is the one that did this, set forth this example. And masalan is the example itself. So actually the word daraba means to strike. So Allah strikes the example. Okay, that's a direct translation. Allah strikes the example. So masalan is the object, which is why it bears that double fatha at the end. It's the object. And then we look at another verse. فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ غُرَابًا. So sent. Who sent? This is the verb. Who sent? Allah sent. So Allah is the subject. What did he send? He sent a crow. Ghuraban is the crow. See the fatha at the end? Bears a fatha at the end, showing that this is the object. Okay. Now let's look at the final case, which is the genitive case. It is majruru. Al-halatu jar. Okay, so if the noun is preceded by a preposition, it will bear a kasra or a tanween kasra. It's called the genitive case. So let's look at some examples here. So we look here, min is a preposition. Min sharri. So the reason why this is kasra, evil, is because there's a preposition coming before it, pulling it down, okay? Pulling it down to have a kasra. It's because of this preposition. From the evil of that which he created, ma khalaq. In this example, fahuwa fi ishate radiya. So here what happened? This is a preposition. Fi, which is what caused this noun to be in the state of jar, majroor. It bears that double kasra, tanween, kasra. Okay, because of this fi, which is a preposition. So he will lead a life of pleasure. Fahuwa, he is in the life of pleasure. So ishatin, okay, that's what you're noticing. If you're continuing, you would read it as fi ishatir radiya. And then final example is ala is also a preposition which brought this noun to have a tanween. Ala siratim mustaqim. So here the ala caused it to bear the tanween kasra. So this is majroor. Okay. So I want you to observe there's a mistake here. This is in the translation. This is not the, it should be a, on a straight path. Why? We studied about definite and indefinite. So if this was on the straight path, it would have been ala as-sirati. There would have been an al here. There would have been an al here in front of sirat. That's how we would know that the translation would be the. But because it doesn't have the al in front of it, this is an indefinite. So the translation is the one that is incorrect. It should be on a straight path. The error is within the book. So if you look on a Quran app, it should be on a straight path. You see, this is also indefinite, right? Ishatin, there's a tin, so this is indefinite. A life of pleasure, indefinite. A life, not the life of pleasure, a life of pleasure. This is also, okay, this is also indefinite, okay? So these were cases of indefinite. Okay, so again, I think that was it. This is moving on to a different discussion with exceptions, which we will cover later. So that's it. That's the end of our lesson today. Inshallah, hope you benefited. And I will see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.